Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. I am your host, Justin Dixon, and today we've got Dylan McDonnell on the podcast. He is the founder and CEO of Foodini. Foodini connects people with dietary needs to the restaurants and menu items that are suitable for them. It's a really interesting episode. We dig into his career as a lawyer, where he started out his career and then shifted over to being a founder of a startup because he has celiac disease, and he became frustrated being able to try to figure out which restaurants he could eat at, which items he could actually eat. And so he decided to create a business. We dig into how he started the business, why he started it, and what's going on in the world of regulation around dietary need documentation on menus. So I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. Let's get Dylan on the pod. Interested in hearing conversations with private equity leaders, CEOs of private equity-backed companies, and startup entrepreneurs where they share their stories about their career journeys, starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, and the important role that having the right talent plays in building a successful business, then you are in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. Here's your host, Justin Dixon. All right, Dylan, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being a guest.
Great to be here, Justin. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in. Give the listeners and watchers a little bit of an overview of who you are, where you are, and what you're up to right now.
Sure. Name is Dylan McDonnell. I'm the CEO of Foodini. You probably hear a little bit of an accent. I'm Irish originally, although born in Philly. I was a lawyer by trade as well before I got into this world, but started Foodini because of a personal problem, celiac, diagnosed as a kid, and kind of have had to navigate the murky waters of dining out with a food allergy for most of my life, and just got kind of more and more frustrated over time with how difficult it was, Justin, to navigate that kind of out-of-home experience. And then kind of had a bit of a eureka moment in a few years ago where I looked into like just how many people are actually impacted by this, and was blown away by the size of the market on the consumer side. You've like nearly half the US population has some form of food allergy or dietary need, which is crazy to think about. But in essence, what Foodini does, we're a dietary intelligence company. We kind of bridge that communication gap between restaurants and food service and consumers who have food allergies or dietary needs. So we work with restaurants, ingest all their menu, recipe, product data, tag it with the correct dietary and allergen information, and then power a consumer-facing platform that allows guests of restaurants or food service to see a personalized menu of exactly what they can and can't eat based on their dietary requirements across 150 different diets and allergens. And that's what we do.
Fascinating. So I was telling you this offline. So this is very interesting because I'm vegan. So going into a restaurant and being able to understand what's vegan, what's not, and trusting that what they put on their menu is true. I don't know if you deal with vegans, but I can appreciate the going out to dinner conundrum that you go through when you have some type of dietary restriction or some type of actual ailment like celiac, to make sure that you're not the pain in the butt kind of guest, but also being able to, actually eat and enjoy yourself. So talk a little more about how it works. So do you have to, if I'm a restaurant, do I have to sign up to the Foodini app or be a customer so that you can get access to all of their menus and all their actual ingredients? Like what's the back end to make sure that, what you say on the app from a consumer side is real and accurate and everything?
Yeah, great question. It's all about the data. So sure, we will sign up a restaurant or a restaurant group or a stadium or whatever it might be. And then the whole process is about getting their data. So their menu data is typically pretty easy, publicly available. Most large restaurant groups have some form of recipe or inventory management system where all their recipes are documented. And then all their products are typically live within their suppliers, so their or distributors, so the Cisco, US Foods of the world. And so we'll pull all that product data from them as well. And so it's really they're the kind of three main buckets where that information comes from. And to be clear, like, this is a tricky exercise. There's a reason why this kind of data, hasn't been very easy to get at before, and why it can be challenging for restaurants to do this. And so we pull those three data sources. We have a team of dietitians, as well as obviously an AI solution that we've been building out for the last number of years that collectively get us to that source of truth of the entire kind of menu, recipe, product build, all with the correct allergy and dietary tags. And then once we have that source of truth in our system, we then have the ability to power the front end solution. But you're right, Justin, the critical thing is about getting the correct, accurate data, making sure it's right, and then making sure it's kept up to date as well.
And then are you charging the restaurant? Or are you charging the customer? Like, what's the economic model for you?
Yeah, we're B2B, so we're charging the
Okay.
restaurant. So essentially how it works in practice is in venue, it's QR code normally. So whether that's on the bottom of the menu or on the menu boards, QR code saying food allergies, dietary needs, scan here, which brings them straight to the web app experience. So it's not an app download, it's a web app. Obviously you can download the app, but not required. And then on the website, it's a digital link. So like anyone with a food allergy or dietary need will always check a menu before they go to a restaurant. So in the same section that restaurants currently have menu, we have allergy dietary menu. And when they click that, brings them to that same experience, which prompts them to create their dietary profile, choosing from 150 different options. So gluten, vegan, peanuts, save, and then instantly the menu personalize. Here's what you can eat. Here's what you can eat with a modifier and what that modifier is. And here's what you can't eat and why, because these ingredients are baked into it and can't be removed.
Got it. And I guess how is this similar, different to like Purple Cow and some of the other like, apps that are out there that essentially my guess is they are just looking at the menus online and assuming that this is vegan or not vegan or can be, gluten-free or whatever. It seems like and again, I don't know them and I don't know their back end, but it seems like you're very intentional and trying to be as accurate as possible.
I think that's it exactly. Like Happy Cow, Find Me Gluten Free, those kind of platforms, they're useful. They're how I would think about them is like Yelp for vegan or for food allergies, where it's like it's a peer review. So I can go on and leave a review saying I went to X restaurant and they had great vegan options, 5-star. And that's so helpful, right, for people. And I've used those platforms in the past. The difference with us is we do an entire menu, recipe, kitchen, cooking preparations, onboarding. Like we have a working relationship with our clients. Like those Happy Cow doesn't monetize, for example. I don't believe the restaurants, they don't actually have a relationship. But we go to like the nth level of detail to provide a super comprehensive suite of information to help people make informed decisions that isn't just about relying on a random person's word for it. It's more about we've worked with their chefs. Our dietitian team have confirmed it. Like this does not contain tree nuts or peanuts or shellfish or whatever it might be.
Got it. And so I'm guessing, I guess you had a personal situation that caused you to do this. You said that you were a lawyer in your previous life. So how did you make the pivot from lawyer to I have this celiac problem or disease to now I'm going to create a business and an app and all this other fun stuff? That's a very interesting, a lot of people have celiac, like you mentioned, a lot of people have different, dietary restrictions. And so, going from I have an issue to actually starting a business is a leap. So I'm kind of curious about the entrepreneurial journey from your side.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't overnight, Justin. I did take some time to make sure I wasn't crazy. I think I probably did 6 or 7 months kind of on the side while I was still working full time as a lawyer, where I was like really trying to prove this out and figure out, is this really a problem? Because it kind of comes back to what I said earlier about the size of the market. I feel like when I was younger, I was, celiac, rural Ireland, I didn't think that there was so many more people that had the same problem as me. And so I didn't really see a huge opportunity. But when I drilled in, like in the US, 33 million Americans with a diagnosed food allergy, like that's a huge market of people who need transparency into what they can eat from a health and safety standpoint, right? And so that for me, it was that market size data, I think, that gave me the first big push into this idea, if I can pull it off, has legs, because there's a big enough market for it. And then the other side of it was the restaurants. I was like, well, the restaurants are going to have to play ball if this is to work as well. And the more I started talking to them and realizing they're dealing with it completely manually, staff aren't being trained on this information, so they're making mistakes. The mistakes are causing lawsuits and brand damage. It just didn't make sense that there couldn't be or shouldn't be a solution to solve for it. And I think the other interesting piece that's happened then over the top, which is kind of my old life coming back to the fore, is regulation. So in Europe for the last decade. In most countries, you can't open a hot dog stand without labeling it for the top 14 allergens, as it is in Europe, 14, it's 9 in the US. And there was no law in the US that recorded anything about food allergies in restaurants historically whatsoever. You didn't even have to document it, not a mind label it or communicate it to consumers. But that all changed in October of last year. Gavin Newsom signed a bill called SB68 on the 13th of October. And it essentially, for the first time, mandates restaurant groups with 20 plus locations in the country, where at least one of them is in California. So essentially every mid-market and enterprise chain in the country, to label their menus, every menu item, for the top 9 allergens, effective 1 July. So in 4 months' time. And that's obviously, a huge shift in terms of finally giving, some awareness and some understanding to the plight of the food allergy community, who have been crying out for this information, like, again, that has been standard in Europe for a decade. And what it essentially meant for our business is we became compliance software overnight. Because now restaurant groups have to do this. And there's 2 ways they can do it. They can either, one, label every menu item individually. So like beef burger contains gluten, eggs, wheat, dairy. Cheeseburger and so on and so forth. Or they can use a QR code that links out to a digital allergen menu, and that's what we do. So, pretty much every operator we've spoken to has a strong preference to not destroy their menu with all of the verbiage. So the QR, we are pretty sure, is going to be used 99% of people who are impacted by this. So regulation's been huge for us.
Interesting. So say that again. So if a restaurant has 20 or more locations, with one of those locations being in California, the entire restaurant chain, or just the restaurant in California needs to
just the restaurant in California? But because most of them are chains, from our conversations, I think the majority are going to, if they do it for California, they're going to do it everywhere. Because like a big restaurant group doesn't want you to walk into their location in Santa Monica and have one experience, and walk into Manhattan and have a different experience. So the majority, we believe, are going to do it, and they've done the work for California already. Why would they not use it everywhere?
I was going to say, if you're doing the work in one, why not just scale it across and make life easier for everybody in that scenario?
But what's been most interesting over the top of that, Justin, is I knew that was going to be the first domino that would fall towards like driving regulatory change in this country. But what's shocked me in the first 7 weeks of the new year has been that 5 other states have now moved or started moving on this exact same thing already. So New Jersey, Michigan, Maryland, New York, Missouri, as recent as yesterday, have now all commenced bills, the majority of which actually impact all restaurants. So not 20 plus, any restaurant or food service in that state serving food will be caught by the regulations as they are in draft. The New York one is a little nuanced. It's actually coming into effect in November of this year. But the point here is that there's real momentum behind the regulatory change in this country, which again is just 10 years behind Europe. Like, the reality will be in nearly all states, I think, in the next 1 to 3 years, is that there will be a form of this regulation in place, and the majority will be all restaurants, not groups.
Well, therein lies probably the underlying problem, is this has been in Europe in a decade and just now getting, legs in the US. Hence why most people, when they travel to Europe and they're like, oh man, I went to Italy and I have friends that are gluten sensitive, and, they go to Italy and they eat all this pasta and bread and they're like, I never had a flare up or any kind of issue. And then they come back to the US and they're, inflamed and all that stuff. So it's just an interesting dynamic now that, things are starting to be more regulated here in the US. I like it. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that. Well, firstly, Italy as a celiac is the best food I've ever had in my life. I couldn't believe when I got there. I kind of went there thinking, because this is 10 years ago, I went there being like, these people are going to have all the pasta and pizza in the world and I'm not going to be able to eat any of it. Best gluten-free options by a country mile. It was unreal. So good. Interestingly, Italy has the second highest rate of celiac disease in the world per head of capita, behind numero uno, the Irish. We have the highest rate of celiac disease in the world, which is a random fact for you. But to your point and your exact example, when I first moved to the US, I did speak to a lot of parents, in particular of kids with food allergies, and they said the exact same thing. Their kids in the US get all the symptoms from gluten that like they're eating here, fly to Italy, not a thing, could eat anything and they were perfect. And it's really, I think that speaks more to what's what our food is made of in this country, as much as anything, and that's a whole other conversation. But it's fascinating how it can be such a dramatic difference between the same product in two different countries.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look at the ingredients in products in the US compared to products in other countries. And, there again is another problem, which again, that's probably for another podcast for people that I am not educated enough to make a determination. I can just only explain what's happened to me personally in different countries from a food and feeling perspective. So I very much applaud what you're doing, because I think, one, this will help me and obviously help a lot of other people that have way far graver diseases and things and allergies, where if some people, if they're in the same room as a peanut, they break out and could be very, very bad outcome for them. What's the growth plan? Because obviously you're very intentional. There's a lot of manpower, both ingesting the data and also verifying, process and things like that. Is the scalability issue just a manpower issue, or how? Because obviously this has become more regulatory, so this is going to need to be, to your point, a compliance software for these restaurants. And so how do you scale this faster and faster outside of the initial restaurants that you have?
Great question. And the honest truth, and I'm not giving you the cliche startup AI piece of thing, but like 3 years ago, even before it became kind of mainstream, we were training LLMs to analyze restaurant menu data for on huge data sets, to enable it to be able to ingest information automatically and make determinations and flag to our team anything it wasn't sure of, which in turn triggered a manual review by our dietitian team. So from a workflow and scalability perspective, we're actually in a very good spot. The times where our job is harder, honestly, is when we're working with smaller businesses where their data is a mess to begin with, and we have a bit more data cleanup to do before the kind of the ingestion exercise. That's probably the only times where it can be slower than I would like. But any time, any larger org that we're dealing with, for the most part, is pretty quick. And yeah, rarely have we had issues, and especially not in recent times with any onboarding, frankly. So I'm not concerned about an ability to scale with demand. The biggest challenge we have is awareness and education. Like a lot of groups, even as recent as the last week, we were speaking to a major restaurant group in the US with 3,000 locations, with a few hundred of them in California. They were not aware of the regulation in California that that's 4 months away from deadline. So it's just not something that necessarily everyone who's caught by compliance is even aware of. And then secondly, even if you're a small restaurant group with 5 locations on the East Coast, it's a new type of technology as well. It's not like we're a better reservation system or a better online ordering system. We're a allergy dietary, solution where we will take what is currently a manual, if you even have documentation or a process around this, but we take that process and completely automate it. And there's a lot of education for restaurants around, the fact that customers won't come if they don't understand that they can eat something there, around the fact that these are the most loyal customers, as a vegan. Like, you find it hard, I'm sure, like me, to find places that are suitable for you. But when you do, and it's good, you're probably as loyal a customer as they're going to get. I go to the same few places around me all the time because they can cater for me, and it's a good experience. Then there's their operational efficiencies, again, of like, your staff are dealing with this manually like 100 times a day. Like, why? How does that make any sense from a labor standpoint? And then the risk of, like, they hear the stories of, which I don't like to share because it feels like you're scaring them a bit, but like, you can almost always give them an example from their locale of a restaurant who, one staff member on one day forgot that there was sesame in the hummus, and someone got badly injured or worse. And, that's the type of PR and lawsuit that can really, really kill and damage a business. So, it's just helping them understand that. And then if they would rather do this manually or, go down another avenue, no problem. But I think for me, it's just like making sure they are aware that there is a solution to this issue out there, and then hoping, obviously, that they view us as the best path to go down to solve for it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this being almost like the, USDA organic stamp of approval, on something where, it could be your restaurant could be Foodini certified or something like that, where, you kind of look at the menu and you see the Foodini web logo and okay, this, I can trust that whatever they have on the menu from a allergen perspective is accurate, right? Do you see that kind of, or is that kind of your ideal path to have, whether it's Foodini on the website or Foodini on the actual QR code and all of that, as like almost like a seal of approval, and the brand kind of gets out there as this trusted advisor status?
100%. And that's kind of where we want to get to ultimately, is that our stamp is seen as that kind of certified best in class practice. It's interesting. Some of the, we're working now with some of the major sporting organizations and some of the kind of big stadiums in the country. And like some groups have a preference for like the white label type solution, where it's more they just want the experience to match their brand guidelines and have it appear as if it's coming, through them, which is totally fine. Again, each group to their own. And then others, to your point, where it's much more they want to kind of be proud of the fact that they've gone to a company who's an expert in this like us, and you have us as the kind of front and center, Foodini as the like, as the expert on this information that's powering this experience. So, in the long term, I think we'll both work for us. But as we get more and more brand recognition, there's probably going to be a lot more demand for our name to be kind of used more front and center, which obviously is good for us.
Yeah. Do you take any of the risk from the restaurant if you're validating the data and then saying that something is nut free or allergen free, and then maybe it isn't? Do you kind of hold any of the risk in that side from your legal perspective?
Yeah, it was I had the terms and conditions for everything drafted before I even had wireframes back when I started, Justin. So short answer is no, unless we make a mistake. Okay. So we rely completely on the information that restaurants give us, and that's because we're obviously not preparing the food, we're not in the kitchen, we have no visibility, so we have to take what they say on face value, and restaurants are also responsible for keeping us up to date as things change. But if a restaurant sent us something like a recipe and it had nuts in it and we didn't tag it for having nuts, we would have, I'm sure, some contributing negligence. But the restaurant does review everything that we put up before we go live, just to so there's always extra checks. It's never happened, but I think unless we were very negligent in our job, I'm not too concerned from a legal liability standpoint.
Got it. How many restaurants do you have on the platform right now?
We're just around 500.
Okay.
So, scaling, which is great. And that's up significantly just in the last few months, as obviously compliance has become more and more of a thing. And obviously as bigger groups come on with, we look at our pipeline, we probably have 10,000 locations, So I'm really excited for what this next few months has. And again, regulation and compliance is just a complete game changer for this business.
And so is your go-to-market strategy essentially going after any restaurant chain that has 20 or more, that kind of fits the Gavin Newsom, bubble of one in California, but, could have 20 or 19 elsewhere? Is that kind of your go-to-market, saying, hey, you need to do this or else kind of thing?
Very, very focused on that right now. 100%. Yeah. And there are some food service businesses caught as well, like some corporate dining and stadiums and different places, different environments that are technically caught by the regs as well. But to your point, yes, we have a 1 July compliance deadline, and we're a full sprint ahead towards trying to work with as many customers who are caught by that as possible.
And what's your team size wise? Do you have a big team that's helping you call or reach out to all of these restaurants and call through the data? Like, how big is Foodini right now from a people perspective?
Yeah, we're like 14 people. Our tech team is still in Australia, because that's where I actually started the business, and so they're still on the ground there. We've obviously a few people in the US. We've one in Canada. We have a few in the Philippines. So we're still pretty lean. Obviously, more and more utilizing the wonderful developments that are happening in the world of software and cloud and amongst others. So honestly, I'm trying to keep us as lean as I can, because I don't think we need necessarily a ton of manpower. A few, sure, but not a ton. But I think where it gets interesting is our current team, we're able to kind of target the groups we're going after because it's limited. It's one state. It's 20 plus. As soon as this becomes, state mandated all locations in any state in this country, there's thousands of groups that come into play then. And at that point in time, sure, we're probably going to need a bulkier sales team.
Yeah. Is there an opportunity, and I just thought of this, and you probably have, so tell me if this is stupid, but to partner or kind of collaborate with the other restaurant technology out there, like the booking apps or the any kind of like restaurant CRM databases, to essentially get access to their pipeline, so they you can almost, to your point, scale faster, but without having to do your own research.
Absolutely. We're partnered already with a number of the online ordering companies. So Olo, who are the biggest enterprise restaurant first party ordering in the country, we're a partner of theirs. We've done projects and had a lot of detailed conversations with the DoorDashes, Uber Eats, like a lot of the kind of big third party online ordering as well. We're very uniquely positioned, I think, to power this form of experience for a lot of those companies. And there are a number of those conversations that are in very advanced stages. So you're on the money. And I think it's as much about them helping us from a distribution standpoint, but moreover, it's about us being able to power a personalized experience for their users in their environment, which just drives more order and more retention, because now you know that Dylan is celiac and vegan. Maybe my entire search screen is going to be very, very different if you understand that data, and you're going to be able to get me to those restaurants and those menu options a hell of a lot quicker, which is going to drive orders, which is obviously their main metric.
Is that kind of the selling point to the end client, the restaurant? Because obviously you're charging them to get on the platform, being a B2B business. So is it like, hey, this is compliance for a lot of the companies, restaurants that fall into the current regulations, but those that don't, is there a value prop that you're selling to get them on board, outside of just being like, hey, this is compliance, so you got to do it or else kind of thing?
Four main things, 100%. One is, if you don't have information, you are losing customers. You have a tenth of the country has a food allergy. Half of the country has a dietary need. And the other thing with those, if you lose those customers, you don't just lose them. Your family can't, or your friends or your coworkers can't go to a place that doesn't have a vegan option. Mm-hmm. So we call that the veto vote. If you lose the person who has the problem, you lose their whole group. That's a massive, not just revenue loss currently, but it's such a massive revenue opportunity if you do this the right way. And doing it the right way is just giving them a tool to understand that there's options available for them at your venue. I touched on the loyalty point as well. The operational piece as well. It's not just like, we're seeing about a 60% reduction in questions being asked to staff at the moment, and that is pretty significant in terms of every one of those conversations. One is a risk point as it is, because 9 times out of 10 it's a staff member who doesn't know anything about the allergy, or maybe they know the gluten-free and vegan, but it's rare that they know about the sesame and soy and all the kind of more nuanced allergens that people can be allergic to, and that typically are the more dangerous ones. Also in like, think of a stadium environment, which is why I think we're being so successful at the solution there. You have these periods of time, halftime, between quarters, between innings, where there's a rush for the concession stands. And if Dylan the celiac and Justin the vegan are at the top of the line trying to figure out what they can eat, at the 16-year-old casual staff, everyone behind us hates us. The venue hates us. Everyone hates us, because it's like we're literally clogging the line at the one moment in time where you want as much throughput and as much as much flow of the line as possible. Again, you have a solution that's in the palm of the consumer's hands, so that when they get to the top of the line, they just say, I want this, and that's the end of the conversation. Or I want this, and I'm celiac, by the way, but that's very different to I'm celiac, what can I have? Which almost always is met with, I don't know.
Good luck.
And then the data is a really interesting one as well. Like, we can report to organizations that, last month in X location, you had 3,000 dietary profiles created. 40% were gluten-free, 25% were vegan, but 10% were keto. You actually don't have any keto-friendly options on your menu, but the demographic of your consumer base is saying that this is something you should look into. And that drives not just menu optimization, but then you can also, if you want, match that to your customer data profile. So like I said, now you as a big restaurant group know that Dylan is a celiac. Now on World Gluten-Free Day, I'm probably going to get an email with a personalized offer. Now, you can really make sure that the comms are personalized to my needs and show that you understand me and my wants. That's a pretty compelling piece. At least it's worked on me with groups who've done it in the past.
Yeah.
And then the risk, I know I've spoken to just limiting mistakes as well. So a lot of benefits completely outside of the fact that you have to do this anyway, legally.
Right. And then, do you have any direct competitors that are doing this? We already talked about the Happy Cows of the world that are more kind of peer-to-peer or peer-reviewed. Are there any other companies that are trying to get as granular and as specific as you are?
Yeah,
especially
I would say
with the regulations now, if that's like a thing, like that could be.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. What we've seen is because nutrition has been an FDA requirement here as well for about a decade. That's more like calories, fats, carbohydrates. And that's why you'll see in any 20 plus location group in the country, they have to put calories on the menus, and then they have to have the nutritional information available somewhere. So there's a lot of companies, not a lot, but there's a handful of companies who've been doing nutrition for a while. I would say for the most part, they're a lot of brilliant companies. They're probably a little more consultative, a little more old school, potentially in terms of their approach, and excellent at nutrition. And now a lot of them layering on allergens over the top, obviously in line with this compliance. We kind of are the opposite. We've always been allergens, and we have nutritional capabilities as well. So look, the way I look at it, competitors are good in this space. It's still an evolving space. For me, my biggest thing is making sure that restaurants are covering themselves and helping their, guests navigate this, and so that people aren't at home feeling excluded and being left out because, all their friends are gone to a place and they picked the place but they didn't realize that, Sarah couldn't eat anything there. And, it's amazing how many people feel isolated as a result of just not being able to understand and being stung so many times. So honestly, I even say to restaurants, I'm like, listen, and if you don't want to go with us, my one ask of you is just document the allergens in your food and have it available to your staff. Even if you just want to put it in a binder or in a PDF or somewhere that's accessible, just do that at a minimum. And then if you so decide that, and that's a tricky process to do yourself, but just if you want to take that in-house and do it, great. That at least, now there's a resource of some sort to at least make sure you're not going to accidentally kill someone. And if you want to be more innovative, obviously, and kind of use a more technical forward solution, great, amazing, come to us, or, but just document the information in the first place.
Yeah. If people want to search, is there a way to search the Foodini verified restaurants that you have kind of signed up? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, you find some of them on the website, because for the most part, consumers find them in the restaurant. So because we live in the restaurant environment, right? We're on their website. We're in their physical menus and in their physical outlets. So consumers find us more through restaurants than they do through us ourselves. A lot of the time they don't even know who it is powering the information. We're white labeled behind the scenes.
Got it.
So fair point. We probably should have a more bulkier list of every restaurant group using us. A number of them and case studies and different things are on the website. But I think the main reason why, Justin, is because they're so spread out. It's not like it's 100 restaurants just in Venice Beach here in thing where it would make sense to have that. But over time, as that builds out, we'll absolutely do that.
Yeah, I think that would be massively helpful. I've actually started to using Google Maps. Anytime I travel, I always find the restaurants I can eat at, and then I tag them so that I know if I go back to this area, I can eat at this restaurant. I know there's good options, and I've even got to the point of listing some of the options and all that fun stuff. But that's very manual, and it's very personal to me versus being able to open that up. So yeah, that's interesting. With this kind of we're recording this in early March of 2026. Obviously, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity just in California with this new regulation. If we recorded the podcast a year from now, what's a few things that you're really trying to accomplish this year from a business perspective, and just kind of how is it going to grow from here?
Yeah. Business perspective, just dramatically scaling the amount of restaurant groups we're in. Again, we're talking now pretty much predominantly to enterprise and large mid-market groups. Enterprise sales cycles, like anything, are slower than I would like, but there's 4 months from a compliance deadline. So I'm really excited to see what this next kind of 4 months delivers in terms of knocking a lot of the kind of conversations we've been having for a while over the line. So restaurant groups is huge. Stadiums is a very big one for us as well. Again, we're working with just a lot of the major leagues and teams now, and I think there's a really good opportunity to scale that. And I honestly think it's one of the biggest pain points in this world of navigating allergies and dietary needs as well. So it's a really nice use case how we kind of can work with them and create like a map of the area as well, so that a consumer can know like where in the stadium to go for different options as well, not just what they can eat when they get there. And then on kind of like business / personal level, I do a lot of advocacy in the background on driving these laws and regulations through. Obviously, selfishly, it's good for my business, but right. On a personal level, I just think it's the right thing to do. And I probably more than anyone get all the notifications on the deaths and the serious injuries and the lawsuits and all the anecdotes from people, thousands of people, millions of people who are getting just sick for a week and missing work and having to go to hospital and like just so unnecessarily. And again, having grown up in Ireland where this was just standard, that there was disclosure around the allergens in food. For me, it's wrong that it's not here. And so I'm proud of and continuing to kind of work with senators and the kind of FAIR and AFA and a lot of the orgs who are pushing these bills through, because I just think it's the right thing to do. And yeah, really excited. I think this next 12 months is going to be absolutely huge for us, and I'm pumped.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's one of those things where you just don't know unless you're in it. And I didn't realize that there were that many people that had documented dietary restrictions. I know that, in the community that I live, there's some kids that, oh, you can't eat, nuts. So you can't make anything or bring anything to their house that has nuts, because if they eat it or whatever, obviously they could have a bad reaction. So, yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, we have an investor there in New York City. They have a kid with I think 3 allergies. And actually, I saw a new data point, by the way, only 2 days ago, which said that 75% of kids who have food allergies have more than one. So it's not just like you have your nut allergy. Like these kids are allergic to multiple things, which obviously just dramatically makes it more and more complex to manage. But in that kid's class in school, I think they're in maybe 1st or 2nd grade, there's 21 kids in the class. 19 of the kids have a food allergy, and no 2 kids have the same food allergies. Jeez. Like this was about 6 months ago when this investor came in, and they were like, that's, I think, further indicative of the fact that this is already a huge problem, and it's worse amongst the younger generation.
Yeah,
it's the kids coming up now are worse than we are, and the people older than us are. So it's just going to continue to become a bigger and bigger problem, and so I think our timing is really good.
Yeah, especially with AI being able to ingest a lot of data and not have to do it manually and double check and triple check and all that fun stuff. I could talk about this for a long, long, long time, and I'm sure maybe we'll have additional conversations about it. But I want to be kind of respectful of your time here. So I guess before we jump into the kind of final questions, like, if you could go back and kind of start this, business again, a few years ago, is there anything that you would maybe do differently or tackle something different? I'm just kind of curious if hindsight's always 20/20. Is there anything you would, try to do faster, different, first instead of second, et cetera?
Yeah, so many things. How long do we have, Justin?
It's up to you.
Look, it's a startup. You live and you learn. I've made so many mistakes, but I think, the key is, did you learn from them, and what did you learn from them, and how did you adapt? Like I'd say the biggest, and it's based on a learning, was the fact that I saw this very much through the lens of the consumer initially. I was like, this is a consumer problem. I'm going to build a consumer app. But I underestimated just how dire things were in the back end for restaurants. I was like, the restaurants will just give me the data. Done. I was naive to the fact that they don't have the data. And that we were going to have to find a way to work in different systems and with different buckets of data to get the data, to then ingest the data, to then analyze the data, to enrich the data, to have the data. Right. And that was why this didn't exist, was because it was so hard to get that. So that was probably the biggest aha. And if I had known that quicker, I probably would have gone go to market a little bit differently as well. But again, learnings after, startup learnings. I think that's how these things work.
That's the life of the startup. You go down a path, you test something, and then you're like, oh, that theory didn't work, or it wasn't true, and then you go down another path. You just kind of pivot. So, awesome, Dylan, man. Let's kind of wrap things up here with a 3-pack of questions I ask every guest. So, first question here is, what is an influential book or maybe podcast that you would recommend that you found helpful?
Okay. Book, I really like it. It's more, Shoe Dog is one of my favorite books. Phil Knight is a good one. I think the Hard Thing About Hard Things is one of my books as well. Ben Horowitz. I think that's a good kind of one, more in terms of like just the scrappiness of startup. I really enjoyed. I've read that twice. This Week in Startups is obviously a podcast I listen to a bit as well, selfishly because I was on it, and I'm like, oh, nice to keep up with the but yeah, they're probably 2 or 3 of the favorites of mine.
Love it. What's one thing that you enjoy doing outside of work?
Sports. Big sports guy. Play golf when I can. Probably only about once a month these days, but still bit of soccer. Big Man United fan, big Irish any sport fan. So if and when I get the opportunity, I love either playing or watching sports.
Got it. Last question here. Favorite vacation spot?
Oh, that's tricky. Well, we talked just before it came out between like Italy and Japan, probably right up there. I'll give it to Italy, just given the weather, the vibe, the beauty of the place, and the food. Like, as a gluten-free person, I've never had better food than I had in Italy. So given that was on topic, I'll give them the nudge just about.
Very cool. Very cool. If people want to learn more about what you're doing, or maybe they own a restaurant chain and they want to, jump on board, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn. LinkedIn is always a good place. Dylan McDonnell on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive and on top of my messages there. Obviously, you can reach out through the website. My email, the website is foodini.co. So that's probably a good spot. Restaurants, reach out directly or come through that avenue. Also on the investment side, I think we raised 2.2 million pre-seed round about 18 months ago. We'll be raising a seed round next quarter, just off the back of a lot of the momentum and regulatory developments in this space. So if there's anyone in the world of investors who are interested, feel free to catch me the same way. My email is dylan@foodini.com. So that's the other place.
We'll have all that stuff in the show notes. Dylan, man, really appreciate the time. It was great to meet you and share your story. So thank you.
No worries, Justin. Thanks so much for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
I hope you found at least one actionable insight from this episode of the Growth Capital Podcast, your one-stop shop for insights from private equity leaders, CEOs, and startup entrepreneurs on starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, as well as the role having the right talent plays in growing a successful business. It would be greatly appreciated if you would rate and review this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and drop us a comment so we can expand the audience of this podcast. Thank you for all your support, and don't forget about upcoming episodes dropping every Tuesday.